It's the Worth Knowing live stream. I'm Matt Robison, and today, failure and hope. We're seeing immense, painful failure right now. And the question is, do we have reason to hope? Are we about to see the turn of the tide? The failure of the moment is, of course, President Trump's war with Iran. When Trump announced over the weekend that a peace deal had been struck, markets reacted immediately and positively, but likely prematurely, because the peace deal is on double secret probation. We're not allowed to know exactly what's in it until Friday. But based on what we do know from substantial media reports, this deal is a complete and utter surrender. Iran is getting an initial $24 billion in funds, plus $300 billion in reconstruction money, plus the long-term ability to impose tolls in the Strait of Hormuz, plus no real restrictions on their nuclear program. The US is getting nothing. And that true cost, that's something I'm writing about on my Substack for tomorrow. So I hope people will subscribe to follow that. But trust me, when I say the true cost is shatteringly and shockingly higher. And all of this is, of course, only one failure, one cost. We've devoted significant time on this show to talking about the many costs of having this particular president. I had the authors Ann Kim and Ira Shapiro on this show 2 weeks ago talking about their book, summarizing the inputs of 45 bipartisan leaders from all sectors, tallying the true staggering impact of just Trump's second term. That's a bill that we're all paying, and it's because of a different kind of failure. The failure of Republicans to stop this cancer from eating their party from the inside, and the failure of Democrats to stop them from the outside, not once, but twice. Now, if there's hope for the short term, it comes in the form of the prospect that the midterms, now only 140 days away, will resurrect some guardrails, some control on an out of control and criminal presidency. Those prospects look good. And this week, I'm introducing a brand new product on my Substack that's going to succinctly, clearly, and honestly update the evidence on the fight for the midterms so people can know at a glance where we stand. So again, hope people will subscribe. Worth Knowing with Matt Robison. Check that out. But I also want to take a step back with our guest today, Melissa Amor, to look at the even larger picture, because the backdrop of the failure to stop Trump is really the end of a larger project, the rise and now the fall of the political power of the baby boom generation. This week, John Harris wrote an essay in Politico talking about what he called the generational disaster of Trump, Bush, and Clinton. All three were born in 1946. Harris says their basic failure, their disaster, was the, quote, decades-long descent in which Americans had been progressively more tribalistic in their political affiliations, ever more coarse and insulting in public discourse, more mystified by and contemptuous of those who disagree, and less confident in the country's ability to reliably and rationally govern itself. In other words, Harris blames them for the birth of today's ultra-toxic political culture. And that may be fair, but it's only part of the story, because each of them also failed at what they set out ostensibly to do. Clinton campaigned as a new Democrat, promising a third way in American politics, and that the era of big government was over. But now, a quarter century after the end of his presidency, the Democratic Party is more confused about what that way is than ever before. We're more internally divided, and we can't mount a coherent explanation of what we really stand for. George W. Bush ran on promising a new kind of republicanism. He ran as a compassionate conservative. That lasted until 9/11 and his decision to exchange the almost universal unity and acclaim that he had in that moment for the cheaper political coin of partisan advantage. Along the way, his presidency expanded entitlements and ran up even greater debt by far than Clinton, and seemingly lost any moorings of what was either conservative or compassionate. Trump campaigned in 2016 as a disruptor, a change agent, and someone who correctly diagnosed the fundamental economic failing of the previous 40 years that had left so many Americans behind. I'm serious about this. I've written about it for Newsweek. It's hard for Democrats to hear. Believe me, it's hard for me to say out loud. But his diagnosis was fundamentally the same as Bernie Sanders' diagnosis, and it was fundamentally correct. But of course, he's a scam artist and a con man who didn't really believe any of it. He was just looking to gain flattery and power and personal wealth. The wreckage that he's left in his wake across 2 terms as president is strewn across the face of America. The point is that these presidents, and in fact, the entire baby boom generation that they represent, and that has held the apogee of American power for so long, have fundamentally failed on 2 counts, both in the political projects that they set out to achieve and in leaving our entire country's governance in a state of perpetual strife and catastrophe. So, where's the hope in all that? The hope is that we're seeing the end of it, that the people, the leaders who left us in this broken state, are beginning to exit the scene. That if we can begin the process of reining in Trump in the midterms, which the evidence suggests there's a strong chance we will succeed in doing, we'll then finish the job in 2028. And in the words of John F. Kennedy, pass the torch to a new generation of leaders. And the question is, where will they go with it? Is there something better up ahead as generations X, Y, and Z take the reins? Those are the questions that we want to tackle today, the failures of the last 10 years as a microcosm for the failures of the last 50 years and the page that we're about to turn. We're going to do that with our guest, Melissa Amor, author of The Inside Outsider. She's a ghostwriter who's written for some of the most interesting people in Never Trump world and writes about that experience and perspective on Substack. And who, by the way, just wrote a must-read autopsy of the Never Trump movement 10 years after its original failure, and who is now, as if that's not enough, launching a new Substack project called XYZ, Politics After the Boom, about the one urgent question: what does American politics look like when the people who have to live longest with the consequences finally get to shape it?